They killed huge Bertha. That 8 PB base got here to my dock each morning for 3 years. I named her, fed her, watched her develop. Now she's floating belly up with 200 other fish due to the fact my HOA president thinks she owns my lake. The chemical stench burned my nostrils at dawn. Sharp copper sulfate combined with rotting scales. Vivian Blackwater had dumped $3,500 of business algae facet into my crystal clear our water in a single day, turning it the shade of antifreeze. I stood there maintaining Bertha's slimy, dead frame, shaking with pure rage. Then I found out something simply stunning. The Vaughn's fancy subdivision gets their consuming water from the same underground spring that feeds my lake. Each drop, each house, 847 homes. She didn't simply poison my fish. She poisoned her whole community, and she or he has no clue what's about to hit her. Ever had associates who concept they may destroy your private home simply because they did not like what you have been doing? Tell me in which you're looking from. And in case you've got an HOA nightmare tale, drop it beneath because this one's approximately to get wild. My call's Marcus Red. And at 52, I in no way notion I would be at conflict with a lady who likely spends more on her manicures than I make in a week. However, that is suburbia for you. I am a retired electrician grew to become sun panel installer right here in Paneerage, North Carolina. The sort of man who fixes matters along with his hands and believes human beings should mind their personal rattling commercial enterprise. My 12-acre property with its spring-fed lake has been in my own family when you consider that 1952, back when this complete place was tobacco fields and common experience. Every morning, I walk that gravel route my grandfather laid boots crunching on stones worn easy via decades of fishermen. The dock planks experience warm and weathered underneath my fingers, nevertheless sticky with morning dew, and that sweet honeysuckle scent mixes with the clean mineral heady scent of spring water. Blue heron nest within the cypress bushes. Vice. Bushes. Base soar at sunrise. And for 70 years, this place has been pure peace. Then the developers showed up. 15 years in the past, they bought the whole thing round me and built Willow Creek Estates, 847 McMansions starting at $600,000 each. They provided me tens of millions to promote Desired My Lake for their United States Club. I informed them they could take their cash and construct a clubhouse in hell. Most of the brand new pals were exceptional. Every day those who waved after they jogged past, perhaps requested approximately the fishing, but then Vivian Blackwater moved in. Photo this. 47 years old. Drives a white Lexus. It is specified more frequently than the majority shower and includes a leather portfolio to neighborhood barbecues. She talks like a legal professional even when ordering espresso, throws around terms like property price optimization and aesthetic compliance requirements. The kind of character who possibly schedules her lavatory breaks. Vivian appointed herself HOA president within 6 months and at once launched her enhancement campaigns. That is fancy communicate for making all and sundry miserable until they bow to her suburban dictatorship. Her establishing shot got here 3 months after she moved in. Certified mail, legitimate letterhead, the whole production. My unpleasant fishing activities have been reputedly demanding her non-violent enjoyment of the community. $800,000 she paid for that lakefront view and watching me catch dinner become what may ruining her investment. The legal threats escalated fast. She claimed my dock violated aesthetic covenants that were supposed to apply to all vicinity houses. The female without a doubt had the nerve to demand I tear down a structure. It's been here considering before she became born. I referred to as my friend Tom Martinez, actual property lawyer, who saved my ass more than once. And holy hell did I hit the jackpot. My grandfather didn't simply very own the land. He owned unique water rights to the whole lake system. Every drop, every fish, each damn molecule of H2O. The authentic 1952 deed specially covered all water rights, floor and subsurface, together with natural springs and tributaries there too. However, here's the stunning element that made me giggle so difficult I nearly fell off my chair. The lake is spring-fed from an underground aquifer that extends at once beneath Vine's precious subdivision. Legally speaking, every time her neighbors flush their lavatories, they are using my water. Information nugget. Water rights often transfer one after the other from land ownership and are recorded in belongings deeds. Those rights may be worth more than the land itself. I called Tom Martinez with my discovery. After he stopped cackling like a madman, he stated, "Marcus, you don't simply have a protection. You've got a nuclear weapon disguised as a assets deed." So, we filed a counterfeit for harassment, slander, and abusive criminal method. However, the timing, that became pure poetry. Vivin changed into hosting one among her fancy outside dinner events. 40-plus HOA residents status around with wine glasses complaining about their property taxes, whilst eating meals that price extra in step with chunk than most people spend on lunch. The evening air carried the scent of pricey catered salmon and pretentious verbal exchange. Champagne glasses caught the golden hour mild. Absolutely everyone dressed like they had been auditioning for a actual estate business. Proper in the middle of Vivian's speech about maintaining community requirements and property values, our sheriff's deputy walked through her back gate like he owned the region. "I need to serve you with some prison files." 40 conversations stopped mid-sentence. The simplest sound become ice clinking nervously in glasses as Vivian's flawlessly manicured hands trembled, studying the papers. Her foundation could not disguise how light she went, whilst she found out what she was preserving. "This is harassment," she shrieked loud sufficient to rattle home windows. "That redneck is making an attempt to intimidate me with frivolous complaints, and there it turned into. The mask slipped, absolutely. The refined real property lawyer had become simply another suburban tyrant having a nuclear meltdown due to the fact a person dared fight back." Her dinner guests remembered urgent appointments. Oh, notable how speedy rich human beings can evacuate whilst someone starts screaming about rednecks at a catered birthday celebration. However, Vivan wasn't completed. The following morning, I found an anonymous observe under my windshield wiper. Prevent phishing or face the effects. Reputedly, public humiliation just made her extra dangerous. Anonymous threats are lovable, however, what Vivan did subsequent become immediately up authorities' weaponization. There's not anything pretty like looking a real estate lawyer turned federal organizations into her personal assault puppies. Slavatine. Within every week of my countersuit, I had more government inspectors crawling over my belongings than a meth lab bust. Fish and Natural World showed up first, clipboards in hand, claiming they wanted to investigate ability disruption to migratory chook styles as a result of my fishing sports. I'm no longer making this up. This female genuinely satisfied a federal employer that me catching base became by hook or by crook screwing with duck GPS structures. The EPA inspector arrived subsequent, appropriate up like he changed into coming into Chernobyl, armed with water trying out kits and a clipboard thicker than Vivian's prison payments. Seemingly, my private lake usage might be growing environmental hazards. The sweet irony of that accusation might hit me like a freight train later. County Fitness Department Thursday morning, Code Enforcement Friday afternoon. By using Weak Stop, I had more regulatory business cards than a Washington lobbyist. Each inspector found precisely what you'll expect from the cleanest lake in 3 counties. Truly nothing wrong. But bureaucratic harassment is a manor street, and I used to be about to discover ways to pressure it. Whilst Vivan become gambling puppet master with authorities groups, puppets. Turns out while you're polite to overworked civil servants pressured to investigate obviously lawsuits, they recollect you. In addition, they recall who is wasting their time. Dolores Martinez became my mystery weapon. 68er vintage retired county clerk with a memory like a steel and Tyson a grudge towards corrupt builders over espresso that tasted like justice and caffeine. She dropped a bombshell that made my head spin. Marcus, that complete subdivision became built on protected wetlands. Developer got his lets in by using promising to hold all natural water capabilities for all time. It is federal law. The coffee cup felt warm in my palms as the implications sank in. Expertise nugget. Development lets in frequently include perpetual upkeep clauses that legally bind all future assets proprietors. Violating those environmental regulations can trigger massive federal penalties. I spent the next weekend gambling environmental detective, and what I discovered was better than winning the lottery. Vivan's landscaping contractor, the identical diesel belching group that had been serenading my fishing trips, turned into using my lake as their private rubbish sell-off. Grass clippings, hedge trimmings, fertilizer-soaked particles, all of it flowing directly into federally protected wetlands. Each Saturday morning at sunrise, like clockwork, I became an environmental paparazzi, hiding inside the tree line with my camera at the same time as the sweet scent of honeysuckle, combined with diesel exhaust. The tough bark of all right trees pressed against my return as I waited for the right shot. Third Saturday in a row, I stuck them dumping natural waste instantly into my water, the splash echoing across the still morning air. The images have been appropriate, time-stamped, GP slow, high-resolution proof of federal crimes occurring in broad daylight. Pristine Landscaping LLC changed into 40% owned through Richard Blackwater, Vivon's husband, real property developer, and seemingly elementine environmental criminal. The EPA does not just love environmental violations with photograph proof. They honestly worship them when they may be connected to harassment campaigns. I filed my criticism Monday morning with a grin that might have powered half the county. By Wednesday, Pristine Landscaping became under federal investigation. Richard lost 3 county contracts with the aid of Friday. Turns out while you're dumping organic waste in blanketed wetlands, municipalities all at once don't need you keeping their public parks. Who should have visible that coming? The sound of Vivon's flawlessly controlled international beginning to crack changed into sweeter than church bells on Sunday morning. But if I concept environmental violations might humble her, simply how spectacularly wrong one character can be. Nothing makes a desperate girl more dangerous than looking her husband's empire crumble due to her private vendetta. Vivian Blackwater was approximately to show she'd alternatively burn down the neighborhood than surrender. The morning I discovered the Algae Facet Company's commercial enterprise card tucked under my windshield wiper, we would cross the road from felony conflict into something tons darker. The card smelled faintly of chlorine and desperation. Environmental terrorism turned into apparently Vaughn's subsequent play. So too awful, she failed to realize she became approximately to poison her personal consuming water. That enterprise card underneath my windshield wasn't just a threat. It became a confession ready to show up. However, I had no idea Vivan become about to commit the sort of environmental crime that would make hardened EPA dealers weep. Dealers weep. Even as I used to be out of Metropolis visiting Sandra's sister in Charlotte. Viven become busy dis. 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 Viven become busy discover. 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 Viven become busy discovery. Viven become busy discovering. 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 Viven become busy discovering algae control ant. 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 Viven become busy discovering algae control answers. 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 Failure to secure those rights can disclose developers and homeowners to large legal responsibility and utilization expenses. For 15 years, 847 families have been the use of my water without permission, without reimbursement. without even understanding their most hated neighbor actually owned every drop flowing from their faucets. The math by myself made my head spin. Common household water utilization instances, 147 houses times 15 years instances marketplace price for water rights. We are speaking tens of millions of greenbacks in returned payments I should legally call for. But the infection perspective, that changed into the diamond sitting on pinnacle of this felony gold mine. Every home in that subdivision turned into now ingesting water, poisoned via Vivan's middle-of-the-night chemical warfare. Copper sulfate signs encompass belly pain, nausea, liver harm, and in youngsters, developmental troubles. The EPA treats this as a public fitness emergency worthy of federal intervention. Vivian's lawsuit against me for 6 of dock space appeared like a toddler threatening Mike Tyson. I referred to as Tom Martinez from the parking zone, sunshine warming the truck's interior while my global tilted on its axis. Tom, I do not simply very own the lake. I personal their entire water supply. Each drop they have got used for 15 years is legally mine. The silent stretched goodbye I checked if my phone had died. Marcus, he sooner or later whispered, you are no longer defending towards a property dispute anymore. You are sitting on the biggest water rights case this country has ever seen. And if that infection spreads through the aquifer, he didn't end. We both knew Vivan had poisoned 847 houses using water that belonged to me. The electricity dynamic just shifted so difficult. I ought to feel the earth pass beneath Vivan's designer heels. Whilst you discover you're sitting on a prison nuclear weapon, you do not simply begin swinging it round like a inebriated guy at a bar combat. You bring together a group of quite skilled assassins who know precisely where to intention. First call went to Rebecca Torres, environmental legal professional out of Raleigh, who'd built her profession destroying organizations that idea poisoning communities became simply suitable commercial enterprise. Years. Her office smelled like high-priced espresso and vendetta once I walked in Tuesday morning. Water rights violation, environmental contamination, public fitness emergency. She said, eyes gleaming as she reviewed my documents. Marcus, this isn't always a lawsuit. That is a master elegance in criminal battle that'll learn in law colleges for many years. Rebecca's approach became lovely. Hit them from each path simultaneously earlier than they even know they are under assault. Federal lawsuit for water rights robbery, EPA emergency intervention for infection. So, state criminal charges for unlawful dumping. Civil fits for property harm, emotional misery and punitive damages that might make a lottery winner blush, criminal tactic, overwhelming warring parties with simultaneous legal movements from multiple jurisdictions forces instant protective positions. They'll be too busy placing out fires to mount any coordinated counterattack. Second recruit became Dr. James Mitchell, hydrogeologist from North Carolina State, who makes opposing lawyers weep during depositions. We met at my Poison Lake Wednesday morning, wherein he spent 4 hours taking samples and mapping the underground spring gadget with system that possibly price greater than my truck. Fascinating aquifer shape, he said, neat and contaminated water, that also rare of chemical compounds. His arms moved precisely through trying out strategies, while dragonflies that used to swarm right here were extensively absent. Single supply spring feeding immediately into residential wells. Contamination will reach every home inside 6 to 8 weeks. We're looking at 800 to A0 affected houses. The medical hammer that would crush any doubt about Vivan's guilt. 1-3 crew member was Sarah Morgan, investigative journalist who'd spent 3 years taking down corrupt HOA. She become collecting scalps. Her exposies had destroyed HOA presidents for embezzlement and one that changed into literally jogging a safety racket. Well, she noticed my proof. She appeared like a kid on Christmas morning. That is Pulitzer-level cloth, she said, spreading documents across my kitchen table with reverent excitement. Electricity-drunk HOA tyrant poisons whole neighborhood whilst terrorizing the fellow who legally owns their water deliver. CNN will combat MSNBC for first interview rights. Sarah's historical past take a look at on Vivan's study like a serial killer's resume. The 3 previous neighborhoods, 4 harassment court cases, restraining orders for stalking behavior. The lady had a documented 2012-month sample of destroying all and sundry who dared undertaking her authority. Dolores Martinez furnished the ancient ammunition. Over-dinner espresso that tasted like justice and bottomless refills. She showed me allow applications proving the unique developer had devoted outright fraud claiming water rights. He never purchased, never owned, never even established existed. Each homeowner sold assets below false pretenses, Dolores explained, her weathered palms tapping yellow files. They think personal water access. Legally, they've been stealing from you for 15 years. Rebecca crunched numbers with calculator precision. Marketplace fee for water rights in our county. $50 in line with family monthly, times 847 homes. Instances 180 months, $30, 6 cents million in lower back payments I may want to legally call for. It truly is earlier than calculating punitive damages for the contamination. Monetary method. In water rights instances, calculate each direct utilization prices and consequential damages from environmental contamination, combine legal responsibility, regularly forces settlements earlier than warring parties can mount defenses. But here's where I made the choice that separated justice from revenge. I wasn't going to financially ruin 800 harmless families simply to punish one psychotic girl. We offer agreement, Rebecca proposed. Waive all back payments for 3 things. Complete lake recuperation, Vivian's resignation, plus crook prosecution and everlasting oversight preventing future abuse. Dr. Mitchell designed the healing plan right there. 18 months the usage of herbal bioremediation, native fish restocking, aquatic plant healing. Fee $250,000 paid jointly by means of HOA funds and Vivian for my part. Sarah coordinated media timing. Simultaneous tail release with legal submitting for max public pressure. She'd already pitched NPR, Washington Publish Environmental Table, and 3 cable networks salivating over the HOA Karen poisons community water supply attitude. The plan changed into stylish. Hit Vivan with federal expenses, nation expenses, civil liability, and countrywide media publicity simultaneously. Give the harmless homeowners a course forward that failed to bankrupt them. Pressure duty without collective punishment. We had proof that would convict. We had expert testimony that couldn't be challenged. We had media prepared to show Vivan right into a countrywide symbol of HOA tyranny. And we had moral excessive floor that might play superbly in courtroom and public opinion. Now, we simply wanted the perfect degree for Vivan's very public downfall. You know what's lovely approximately looking someone's global disintegrate? The instant they understand their cover-up is without a doubt making the entirety worse, but they are too deep to prevent digging. Vivan located the water contamination exactly the way Karma supposed. Through her acquaintances' court cases about the metal flavor in their morning espresso. So, inside per week of poisoning my lake, the Willow Creek Estates Facebook institution exploded with posts about bizarre-tasting water and atypical odor from the taps. Dad and Mom complain their kids have been getting belly aches. One woman posted about her canine refusing to drink from its bowl. Ixoi. The comment phase turned into a virtual panic room. Vivan being Vivan straight away went into damage manage mode that might make a politician proud. She posted an authentic HOA assertion, claiming the flavor changed into natural mineral deposits and seasonal adjustments in groundwater composition. Translation. Nothing to peer here. Stop asking questions. Agree with your benevolent dictator. However determined human beings do determined things. And Vivian became approximately to prove simply how some distance she'd visit hide her environmental terrorism. She contacted the Algicide Agency, Clearwater Solutions, and tried to bribe the owner into destroying their provider records. Offered him $10,000 coins to lose any documentation in their Midnight Lake treatment. The scent of her desperation should have cleared a room. What Divine didn't understand turned into that environmental offerings corporations preserve meticulous statistics, mainly due to felony liability. And the owner, a man named Derek Thompson, recorded their whole verbal exchange because something approximately a frantic female offering coins bribes at 11 p.m. made his legal professional senses tingle. Felony warning. Trying to break proof or bribe witnesses transforms misdemeanor prices into felony obstruction of justice. The quilt-up is frequently worse than the crime. While Vivan became busy seeking to erase evidence, she also employed a private investigator to dig up dust on me. A few men named Rick Patterson, who specialized in private heritage investigations and gave the impression of he learned his trade from horrific television indicates. Rick started out following me around town, photographing my truck, speaking to my customers, searching for whatever that would discredit me in court docket. He even tried to break into my truck one afternoon at the hardware store. I watched from interior the shop as he tried the door handles, his reasonably priced healthy jacket stretching throughout his back. I referred to as the police and had him arrested for tried vehicle housebreaking. Turns out Rick had a records of overstepping felony barriers for clients. His PI license changed into already on probation. However, Vivan wasn't carried out. She filed nameless complaints with the country contractor licensing board claiming my sun panel enterprise changed into operating without right permits. Complete fabrication. But it induced in research that fee me 2 weeks and $3 in prison fees to resolve. The bureaucratic harassment become lower back with a vengeance. Except this time, I used to be documenting the entirety. Every smartphone name, every criticism, every instance of her throwing authorities' agencies at me like guns. Surveillance tip. In harassment instances, constantly test your kingdom's recording laws. North Carolina is a 1P party consent country. That means I may want to legally file every communication without informing the alternative party. In the meantime, the community health crisis was getting worse. A pediatrician on the town observed a spike in childhood belly troubles among kids from Willow Creek Estates. Dad and mom were bringing youngsters in with symptoms constant with heavy metallic poisoning, nausea, belly pain, headaches. The HOA board started receiving dozens of court cases about water first rate. Human beings had been shopping for bottled water in bulk. Some households hooked up expensive filtration structures. The Facebook group had become a guide organization for human beings, satisfied something became severely wrong with their water deliver. Vivian's reaction, blame aging infrastructure and announce a unique assessment of $500 in step with household for emergency water gadget improvements. She was literally charging humans to restoration the hassle she'd created. The board meeting where she introduced this turned into marvelous. 80 irritated owners packed into the network middle, the air thick with anxiety and the smell of burnt espresso from the historical community espresso maker. Mother and father stood up annoying answers, displaying medical bills, threatening proceedings. Vivan stood on the podium in her designer suit, makeup best, voice constant, as she lied through her enamel approximately mineral deposits and infrastructure screw-ups. The female may want to have taught master training in gaslighting. 3 board members faced her after the meeting, worrying to recognize about the mysterious $3,500 landscaping rate from the HOA budget remaining month. Vivan refused to provide receipts, claimed it became routine protection, and threatened to sue any board member who wondered her economic selections. That is when board member Patricia Morgan, no relation to Sarah, started out doing her very own research into HOA price range. Turns out the use of network funds to poison a neighbor's property counts as embezzlement underneath North Carolina regulation. The partitions had been closing in on Vivan from every direction. Her cowl up was developing new crimes faster than she could hide the vintage ones. And she or he, nevertheless, had no idea that I owned the water supply she just contaminated. I obtained one final threatening telephone call that week. Drop the lawsuit or you'll remorse it. The voice turned into disguised, however the desperation underneath turned into unmistakable. My response changed into easy. I will see you in court docket. Whilst a cornered animal realizes the trap is remaining, it both surrenders or is going clearly feral. Vivian Blackwater selected Fro. Her final gambit commenced with a neighborhood-wide defamation marketing campaign that would make a propaganda minister jealous. She created 3 fake Facebook accounts complete with stock pictures and pretend histories, and flooded the Willow Creek Estates group with posts about my illegal activities. According to Vivan's virtual puppets, I used to be an environmental terrorist who intentionally contaminated my own lake to frame the HOA and extort money from innocent families. The put-up claimed I was strolling some kind of coverage fraud scheme, that my Sun Enterprise became a front for unlawful operations, that I had a criminal history. Natural fiction, but posted with sufficient self-belief that human beings commenced believing it. Defamation law. Creating faux accounts to unfold fake statements inflicting reputational or economic harm constitutes irritated defamation and might cause separate civil and criminal prices. The smear campaign worked on a few human beings. I commenced getting antagonistic stares at the grocery keep. 2 Sun installation clients canceled contracts mentioning issues about our commercial enterprise practices. Person spray painted L on my truck within the Walmart automobile parking space. The reasonably priced paint smell lingered for days even once I cleaned it off. However, Vivan's desperation turned into about to steer her into genuinely silly territory. She showed up at my residence on a Thursday night, dressed in casual clothes instead of her traditional powers healthy, carrying a leather briefcase that likely fees extra than the majority's monthly mortgage. Monthly mortgage. The sunset forged lengthy shadows across my driveway as she walked up, her heels clicking at the concrete. "Marcus, I suppose we are able to resolve this like affordable adults," she stated, setting the briefcase on my porch railing. The leather creaked as she opened it, revealing neat stacks of $100 payments. The very last war of words became inevitable, and it became going to be very, very public. The Ponier Ridge Community Middle hadn't seen a crowd like this since the county attempted elevating property taxes. Standing room only, 300 human beings stuffed into area for 200. The air turned into thick with body heat, anxious electricity, and burnt institutional coffee. TV information crew set up cameras in lower back. County sheriff placed deputies near exits. EPA representatives sat the front row with professional badges and grim expression. Vivan sat on level with last HOA board participants, clothier suit ideal, makeup flawless. However, her eyes had that cornered animal appearance. She saved checking her telephone, likely praying for a miracle. I sat third row with my team. Rebecca Torres, Dr. Mitchell, Tom Martinez, Sarah Morgan. We had files that would alternate everything. However, first we'd permit Vivian dig deeper. Patricia Morgan, the brand new board president, referred to as the assembly to reserve. "We are right here to cope with water satisfactory worries and talk EPA findings." The crowd erupted. Dad and Mom shouted about unwell kids. Someone yelled approximately belongings values losing $40 in 2 weeks. Demands for refunds, answers, duty. Patricia raised her palms for quiet. The EPA will present their findings first. Dr. Sandra Murphy from the EPA failed to sugarcoat it. She displayed water testing consequences on the projector, vivid purple numbers showing copper sulfate levels 4 instances above secure requirements. "Infection originated from business algae aspect dumping here," she stated, laser pointer highlighting my aquifer map. "Chemicals entered groundwater and unfold during the spring feeding your wells." Vivian squirmed like she changed into sitting on warm coals. "Who dumped the chemical substances?" Someone shouted. Dr. Murphy appeared immediately at Vivan. "It is a remember for ongoing crook research." 300 heads grew to become to stare at Vivan. The temperature dropped 20 stages. Patricia cleared her throat. Marcus read as facts about assets' rights and water access. I walked to the microphone. Each eye accompanied. Cameras swiveled. "Maximum of you realize me as the hard neighbor who wouldn't prevent fishing." I commenced. Vivian Blackwater spent months seeking to pressure me off my assets through complaints, harassment, and eventually environmental terrorism. Vivian shot up. "It is slander." "I by no means sit down, Mrs. Blackwater," the sheriff's deputy ordered. "No longer requested. Ordered." I held up my grandfather's 1952 deed. This record consists of one unique paragraph I want to study. "All water rights, surface and subsurface to underground spring device and tributaries thereto in perpetuity." Silence except for the projector hum. In simple English, I very own the water rights to the entire aquifer feeding this subdivision. Every drop out of your taps for 15 years legally belongs to me. The developer in no way purchased those rights. He simply drilled into my water without permission. Burden's shouting erupted. Anger, shock, fear blending inside the crowd. I held up my hand. I'm no longer here to bankrupt all and sundry. I am waiving all again payments about $30 million you might not owe me. Comfort washed over faces. However, Vivian Blackwater poisoned my lake with commercial chemical compounds, destroying 70 years of Circle of Relatives' historical past and contaminating water that belongs to me. Then she included it up while your children were given unwell. Rebecca stood. Mrs. Blackwater faces federal environmental destruction charges, nation illegal dumping and embezzlement prices, and civil property damage charges. We've video evidence, recorded bribery attempts, and documentation of the usage of HOA finances for personal vendettas. The deputy walked toward the degree. Vivian went ghost white. That is a setup. Ma'am, I have an arrest warrant for environmental crimes and obstruction of justice. The room exploded because the deputy handcuffed her. You may all regret this, she shrieked. I will sue every considered one of you. That redneck is manipulating you. Final mask. Long gone, natural rage and classism on display for 300 witnesses and 3 cameras. As she became escorted out, I back to the microphone. I'm presenting a agreement defense of anyone right here. Full environmental recovery funded via insurance and Mrs. Blackwater's restitution. No return bills for water utilization, and impartial oversight to prevent destiny abuse. The group's anger shifted to careful wish. Patricia stood. The board unanimously supports this proposal. Dr. Mitchell provided the recovery timeline 18 months to clean water, ecosystem healing, normal protection checking out. Sarah Morgan's article might submit in the hour. HOA president poisons whole neighborhood's water supply in assets, vendetta, tour. People filed out, a few preventing to shake my hand, others processing everything. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It became approximately responsibility, community healing, and ensuring no person else might go through beneath petty tyrants. Vivian Blackwater spent months trying to power me off my land. Instead, she drove herself instantly right into a federal jail cell. 6 months after Vivian's arrest, I stood on my dock at sunrise, watching native base fingerlings get launched into the lake. Water crystal clear again. That clean mineral odor, replacing the chemical stench that had haunted this location. Dr. Mitchell's recovery plan labored better than predicted. Herbal bio-remediation, strategic water cycling, and native plant recuperation introduced the lake, returned to existence faster than expected. Monthly EPA checks showed infection stages losing to 0. Massive Bertha's descendants were thriving. The grandfather's lake environmental consider became something bigger than I imagined. Settlement budget, $250,000 from Vivian's belongings and HOA insurance, created an environmental schooling program. Local colleges conveyed kids out 2 times monthly to study aquatic ecosystems, water conservation, and defensive natural sources. Seems poisoning a lake can result in something stunning in case you're willing to turn tragedy into schooling. Vivian's prison aftermath turned into precisely what she deserved. Federal environmental destruction, state unlawful dumping, embezzlement, obstruction of justice. She pleaded guilty to everything. 3 years federal jail, 5 years probation, $75,000 in restitution, 200 hours cleaning waterways after launch. Her husband divorced her. Actual estate regulation license completely revoked. She misplaced the entirety seeking to ruin one guy who simply wanted to fish in peace. Willow Creek Estates underwent its own transformation. New HOA board applied transparency guidelines requiring property owner vote approval for financial selections. They installed resident rights safety committees and changed Vivian's dictatorship with actual democratic governance. The twist nobody saw coming. Kids who'd by no means held fishing rods learned to cast from the same dock wherein my grandfather taught me. The yearly spring pageant became community tradition celebrating restored environment, community cooperation, and the concept that on occasion the fine revenge is being better than your enemy. This 12 months' pageant drew 500 humans, precedes investment neighborhood water conservation. Sandra and I nonetheless sit down on that vintage dock maximum evenings looking bass bounce at sunset. The wooden planks sense heat and easy, worn by means of time and limitless fishermen. Children's laughter from the fishing program mixes with foul music and mild splashing. This location feels alive again. Our prison case set precedent. Three other North Carolina water rights cases mentioned our agreement as a version for balancing character property rights with community desires. Environmental law students examine how we used leverage for recovery rather than destruction. HOA reform regulation passed the state Senate last month, stimulated by way of Vivon's abuse. New laws require financial transparency, restrict HOA authority over pre-existing residences, and set up consequences for harassment and electricity abuse. One female's tyranny caused systemic change protective lots of Destiny homeowners. My solar business accelerated into environmental recuperation projects. Preventing an HOA tyrant and winning makes tremendous advertising. I have consulted with dozens of belongings owners facing similar harassment, supporting them apprehend rights and combat again correctly. Sarah Morgan's article Unfold National spawned a podcast series and stimulated proposed federal regulation addressing HOA duty. One lake, one stand in opposition to tyranny, national effect. Here's what I learned. By no means let petty tyrants make you abandon ideas. Record the entirety. Realize your rights. Once in a while, the pleasant way to defeat enemies is not destruction. It is building something better from their errors. Your flip. Have you ever treated easy as nightmares or property rights violations? Proportion your story in the feedback. Your revel in may help someone else dealing with comparable battles. Real reviews create actual alternate. If this story of standing up to petty tyrants and protecting our surroundings inspired you, hit that subscribe button and switch on notifications. The subsequent week, the town councilman who attempted stealing a veteran's land through eminent area abuse, till the veteran determined the councilman's very own property violations. That karma was even sweeter. Take into account whether or not you were in North Carolina, Texas, California, or everywhere else handling power, hungry HOA. You're now not on my own. Communities are stronger than tyrants. Fact is extra powerful than corruption. And occasionally, one man or woman standing up for what is right changes everything. Thank you for looking. Now get accessible and guard what's yours.